Lakers lose, this will be the second straight year they have been eliminated in the first round. 7 p.m. tip-off on TNT. Shout out to Lakers star Luka Doncic. Doncic donated $5,000 to cover the entire cost of restoring a mural in downtown L.A. featuring Kobe Bryant and his daughter Gigi. The mural, designed on a building on the corner of 14th and Main Street, was vandalized over the weekend. As for the Clippers, they forgot to bring their defense to Denver, especially when it came to defending Jamal Murray. Murray lit up the Clippers with 43 points in a 131-115 win. Denver now has a 3-2 lead in the series. They can eliminate the Clippers in Game 6 Thursday night at the Intuit Dome in Inglewood. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
You really about to do it?
40 acres and a mule. This is bigger than the music.
You really about to do it?
Yeah, they tried to rig the game, but you can't fake influence.
Who among us doesn't like black music? But Kendrick is right. This moment is so much bigger than music. These are serious times. We've got serious problems, and we need serious people who understand that slogans are not solutions. When you want substantial and sober analysis about things that matter to you and the ones you love, this is where you turn. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we've got your black.
Baby!
Live from historic Leimert Park in Los Angeles, California, I'm Tavis Smiley, and I'm so glad to see you and me back in stride again. Before we get started with today's show, let me invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley, and get updates on X, formerly Twitter, at Tavis Smiley. By the way, should you miss any part of today's program or want to catch up on previous shows, you can always visit thetavismiley.show.com. That's thetavismiley.show.com, or wherever you get your podcast, and listen to the Tavis Smiley podcast version of this live program at your leisure. Another great show on tap for you today. In our second hour, was Donald Trump's plan for Black America really just a bait-and-switch move all along? We'll talk about it with Derek Hamilton, director of the Institute for the Study of Race, Stratification, and Political Economy at the New School. In our third hour, two conversations. Up first, as the biological daughter of a black GI and Vietnamese mother, Tweed Williams was one of the babies brought to America 50 years ago this week during Operation Baby Lift. She will tell us about her journey from Ho Chi Minh to Portland, Oregon on the top side of Hour 3. On the B side of Hour 3, it's Grammy-nominated singer Freda Payne. She'll join us on the backside of Hour 3 to reflect on her seminal anti-war song, Bring the Boys Home, and the song's impact on ending the Vietnam War as we mark today 50 years since the end of that war and the liberation of Ho Chi Minh City in South Vietnam from U.S. occupation. 50 years ago today, the Vietnam War finally came to a close. But in this first hour, two more conversations on the B side of this hour, a conversation with my colleague and host of the Jesse Jackson Jr. show, Jesse Jackson Jr., who spent almost 20 years in Congress. Jesse has as good a grasp as anyone I know about how Democrats can find their footing and navigate forward now that we've passed Trump's first 100 days. And speaking of Democrats, we commence today's show in conversation with the Democrat right about now, the relatively new chair of the DNC, Ken Martin. Mr. Chairman, good to have you on this program, sir. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me, Tavis.
It's good to have you on the program. Let me start with a couple of broad questions, and I thank you for these 30 minutes or so that we have here. Start broad, and we'll narrow as we move through this hour. My opening question is simply this. For all the drama that Democrats are trying to navigate their way through right now, why in the world did you want to be chairman in the first place?
Well, that's a good question. First off, for very personal reasons, for me, politics is never about, power. It's about making a difference in people's lives, really helping to improve communities throughout this country and giving people a sense of hope that their better days are in front of them. And we have a lot to fight for, of course, with this tyrant in the White House and what he's already done just in his first 100 days to really destroy this country. And I'm sure we'll get into that in a moment. But the other piece of it is, look, our Democratic Party has to be rebuilt. We have to win elections, of course, so that we can actually improve people's lives and make the difference that we want in this country right now. And so, while it's a big job for sure, someone has to do it, and I'm glad that I was elected to do this job.
No naivete in asking this question, but why does the chair of the DNC call the president a tyrant? What's that mean for you?
Well, look, he's already showed it, especially in the first 100 days. He made a lot of promises, as you were just mentioning, to the American people. He made a lot of promises to the black community that he hasn't delivered on. The reality is what he's done is completely broken every single norm within this country. That when I was growing up, Tavis, there were values that united Americans, regardless of party, regardless of ideology. Things like respect for our Constitution, respect for the rule of law and separations of power, the idea that we believe in a free and fair press and independent press, idea that we believe in an independent judiciary. The idea that we're going to stand with our allies around the world always, and we're going to protect emerging democracies around the world. All of these values which united Americans now have been completely destroyed and thrown into the dustbin of history by this president who could care less. I believe what's always made America great is those values and a fierce belief in the American dream, the idea if you work hard and you play by the rules, you should be able to get ahead in this country. And the only thing Donald Trump cares about is helping his billionaire friends get richer while the rest of us get screwed in this country. And so, he's a tyrant. He's completely abandoned our values as Americans, and he's done nothing since he's been elected to actually help hardworking Americans afford their lives and actually get ahead.
I've got many more questions for Ken Martin, the chair of the DNC. I assume he has answers. We will see when we come forward. The first question, when we come forward, is picking up on his point a moment ago that the Democratic Party needs to be rebuilt. The question is obvious. How? We'll start there when we come forward with Ken Martin on Tavis Smiley.
From Leimert Park with love, this is Tavis Smiley.
With Progressive's collision coverage, my family gets up to $1,000 for vet bills if I'm injured in a car accident. And that makes this Chihuahua really feel like part of the family. What's that? I don't sound like a Chihuahua? Oh, I'm sorry. What exactly am I supposed to sound like? I guess all Chihuahuas are high-strung, riding around in expensive designer purses. Actually, I prefer riding in cars. So I appreciate that my family protects me with Progressive's pet collision coverage. Okay, maybe I am a little high-strung. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Not available in all states. Coverage for dogs and cats is included with the purchase of collision coverage and is subject to policy terms.
Make a move into a home of your own. With City National Bank's Ladder Up Home Loan Grant, you could receive up to $20,000 that you never need to pay back. Use it toward your down payment, save on closing costs, or to buy down your mortgage rate. Find out more at cnb.com/ladderuphome. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Property must be in a qualifying market in California, New York, or New Jersey. Additional terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Terms are subject to change without notice. City National Bank is an equal housing lender. Member FDIC. NMLS number 536994.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Worried about eviction? You have rights, and Stay Housed LA can help. Stay Stay Housed LA is a partnership between LA County, the City of Los Angeles, and local service providers. From Lancaster to Long Beach, we're here to help you with tenant education workshops, legal clinics, free legal services for eligible tenants, and online resources about tenant protection laws. Don't face eviction alone. Call our hotline at 1-888-694-0040. That's 1-888-694-0040. Or visit stayhousedla.org. Stay Housed LA, keeping Los Angeles residents in their homes. Stay Housed LA, your rights, your home, our community. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
The Comedy Connection series featuring KBLA's Zoe Williams, the voice of reason, and the alpha male of comedy, Ray Grady. We're going to transform relationship disasters into stand-up material live at Inglewood's Miracle Theater on May 31st at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. My clinical team will disclose all of your dating woes, while the alpha male of comedy, Ray Grady, has hand-selected supremely talented comedians to roast all of our tragic relationship choices. I dare you to bring your ex's phone number, because Ray, he's going to text it live, and the crowd will be sourcing emojis. Tickets are moving swiftly, so don't hesitate to grab yours at themiracleinglewood.com before I diagnose your dating history as a pre-existing condition.
More honesty than you can handle. More empowerment than you can imagine. You're tuned in to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and the relatively new chair of the Democratic National Committee, the DNC, Ken Martin. So, Mr. Martin, you said a moment ago the Democratic Party needs to be rebuilt. One of the reasons why you ran. Rebuilt how?
Well, look, I mean, obviously the last election was a gut punch for all of us. It was a close election for sure. The third closest in 100 years, the closest congressional election in our country's history. But the reality is it doesn't change the fact that we've been losing ground with all parts of our coalition. We have real systemic issues, and if we're going to win again, we have to both look in the rearview mirror and learn the right lessons from the last election and start to build throughout this country again. And that means, as I said when I was running, and we're doing already, elections aren't won in D.C. They're won on the ground out in the states. And I ran on this idea that we need to get the DNC out of D.C., back into the communities across the country, building in every zip code in every county throughout this country, and contesting races up and down the ballots. We cannot be a party, if we're going to be a national party, that's just focused on 7 battleground states and a few congressional districts. We've got to understand where the conservative movement has really beat us to the punch throughout this country over many years now, is they're contesting races at every level of government, all the way down to school boards. And our own indifference to school boards, as an example, has resulted in the largest school districts in the country, many of them being taken over by the far right, who is whitewashing history. They're banning books. They're attacking our children. And that's as much on the conservative movement as it is on us, because we have viewed these positions of power as nonpartisan offices, and as a result, we haven't wanted to compete there. Well, we have to start competing in every position of power and every public policy arena in this country right now, so we can build power around our agenda, and we can actually start to get policies passed that are going to improve communities and, again, make a difference in people's lives. And, that manifests itself in so many different ways on what we need to do to reflect in this time. But really, for me, it's getting the party out of D.C., getting away from this beltway mentality, making sure we're building everywhere. Just last week, we announced historic investments in our state parties through a 50-state party strategy, where we're actually making the deepest investments ever in the grassroots to build the party from the grassroots up and not the top down. So we're doing a lot already. I'm 3 months into the job. We've got a lot more work to do. But the one thing we have to do while we're building our party, of course, for the future to win, is we also have to resist Donald Trump. You have to stand up right now and fight with every fiber of our being against a president, of course, who is targeting communities throughout this country and doing, serious unprecedented damage to the values and norms that, as I mentioned earlier, that have always made this country great. So we have to resist Donald Trump, but we also have to give people a sense of who we are, what we're fighting for, and why.
Speaking of who we are and what we're fighting for, let me run through a list of issues I want to get your take your temperature on. Let me start with this. James Carville, who I've known for years, I'm sure you know, is a stalwart Democrat, but he said two things of late that I want to get your read on. One, in no particular order, he suggested not long ago that Democrats ought to play possum and just roll over for the moment and let Republicans implode, as it were. And then just days ago, he invited progressives to leave the Democratic Party. Maybe y'all don't belong in here anymore, and y'all should find your own party. But whatever you do, he said, don't put the word Democrat in your title. So should Democrats play possum right now, as Carville suggested, and should progressives be disinvited from the Democratic Party, as Carville suggested?
Well, let me just say this. I have great respect for James Carville. I worked for him in '92, and I worked on the Bill Clinton campaign. And but I disagree with him on both accounts. And let me just say, on as it relates to playing dead, if you're not willing to stand up and fight like hell for the things you believe in, do you really believe in them at all? We can't rely on Donald Trump failing or the Republicans failing for us to win. We have to go out there and give people a sense that we actually are fighting for what we believe in, and we're going to stand up and do everything we can to fight against this guy who is destroying people's lives. Someone said to me, Tavis, in 2016 after that election, the Republicans are shameless, but the Democrats are spineless. And part of the challenge that we have as a party is people see us as weak. They also see us as disingenuous, right? One of my old mentors was a guy named Paul Wellstone, who I worked for. Paul used to say you should never separate the life you lead from the words you speak. Yet too many people in our party see Democrats as speaking out of both sides of their mouth and not willing to stand up when they have power and fight hard for the things they believe in, or not willing to stand up and throw a punch and actually take on the Republicans the way we need to. And so I disagree with James.
Yep.
Right now, we can't rely on someone failing. We control our own destiny. As it relates to progressives, look, we're a Big Ten party. I've always said that. I was the chair in Minnesota for 14 years. We're the Democratic Farmer Labor Party there. By nature, we're a coalition party. But Democrats generally throughout this country are a coalition party. We have conservative Democrats, we have centrists, we have progressives, and we even have this new group of leftists. I believe you win elections through addition, not subtraction. And while sometimes it means it's messy within our party because we have diversity of thought and ideas and diversity in geography and race and ethnicity, that can sometimes be perceived as a weakness, but it's our greatest strength. And again, we should not be pushing anyone out of the conversation. We should be bringing everyone in, despite the fact that sometimes that results in messy conversations.
Speaking of messy, the Democratic Party has a white problem. I'm not telling you something you don't already know, but let me just break it down this way. You got a white problem at least on two levels as I see it. Number one, again, no particular order. The Democratic Party has not won the white vote. They have not won a plurality of the white vote since Lyndon Johnson in the 60s. That's number one, which is why Carville's comment about progressives leaving is so stuck on stupid. And I like James, too. He says the economy's stupid. No, James, you're stuck on stupid. If you believe that people of color and progressives ought to leave the Democratic Party, here's my point. My point is the Democratic Party has only won since the 60s because of people of color, black people. It's the most loyal base because of progressives. You ain't won the white vote in the Democratic Party since the 60s, number one. That's a white problem. But we also see more recently the Democratic Party has a white problem when it comes to white women. So you got two problems in white. What do you do about both?
Well, you're not wrong on any of that. And the black community has been the beating heart of the Democratic Party for generations. But we can't take any vote for granted, both in the black community, the white community, anywhere. We've got to do a better job. And that's why I say we've got to compete everywhere. You can't give up on communities. And you can't just expect people to show up and vote for us without putting in the work and giving them a good reason why. We have to show up every day. We have to show our voters that we value them. And I would say one thing that's important right now is to realize the things that connect all of the disparate groups, because sometimes we, end up not realizing that when I talk about what the real fight in this country is right now is a fight for the working class. And the working class is black, brown, and white people who are working their asses off right now and falling behind, feeling like, they can't quite achieve the American dream and climb an economic ladder and build a better life for their family. They feel like they're forgotten.
Let me cut in for a second. For some reason, all of a sudden, Mr. Martin's line started to warble, as you heard. Let me get that straightened out right quick so we can actually hear what the chair of the DNC has to say on these important questions, these important issues. While I do that, I want to play this clip anyway. Now's a good time as any to play it, so Miles can get that phone line straightened out. Here's a clip of Donald Trump yesterday. There are any number of clips I could play. We'll probably play more throughout today's program. He sat down for an interview yesterday with Terry Moran at ABC, and this is Terry asking him, well, you'll hear it. Just play it, Miles.
I guess the question out of that is the concern that people have. Are you using your powers as president to get personal revenge?
No, I'll tell you what you're really not asking, and you should be asking. There has never been a president in this country, in the history, that was persecuted like I was persecuted by really crooked people, dishonest, horrible people, and it's been proven. So when you say I'm treating people rough, I'm not treating people rough. I was treated worse than any president in the history of our country. And, you know, people figured, well, maybe that's it. Finally, we got, you know, he's leaving town. There goes the helicopter. And then I came back. And I came back because I have tremendous support. You know, when you win an election like I won it, and you will admit I won all 7 swing states, I won the popular vote, I won 2,750 districts compared to 500 districts. That's why the map is all red. And those people feel that I was treated unfairly.
But does that give you the right to go after your political opponents with the powers of this office?
I'm going after, all I'm doing, hey, Biden did something to me, and I did something to Biden. And you know why I did it? Because he's grossly incompetent. That's not a man that should be allowed to, you know, be looking at things that are very confidential.
So, Mr. Chairman, you hear the president saying to Terry Moran yesterday, when Terry asked him directly, are you using your office for revenge? He said, no, I'm not using it for revenge. The question you ought to be asking me is about how badly I was treated. No president's ever been treated as badly as I have. So, once again, Donald Trump doesn't really answer the question. But what do you make of his comment that he's not using his office for revenge when the evidence suggests altogether something different?
Well, look, Donald Trump continues to lie to the people. The facts speak for themselves. And, you know, I think it's really important because we're getting ready to celebrate, here today, and it's not celebrate. It's really to commemorate these first 100 days of his administration, which are just been a disaster. He's achieved the unthinkable already, Tavis. He's brought America to the brink of implosion. Both on the world stage, he's made us a joke. On the home front, he's made us weak. The public is completely frustrated and disappointed and increasingly angry, by the way, at the state of politics right now in this second term of Donald Trump. Think about this, Tavis, and this speaks to something broader here. As of today, 57% of Americans are afraid or pessimistic about what's to come next under this president. We have Americans, a vast majority of Americans, who are fearful about their future right now. They're not optimistic. And so, Donald Trump wants to play games talking about, whether he's using the office for revenge or not. The proof is in the pudding as he's, rounding up people around the country, going after his political opponents. He's suing Democratic law firms, as an example. He's passing executive orders to, go after, a Democratic infrastructure like Act Blue. Let's be really honest. Let's call a spade here. At the end of the day, the reality is we know exactly what he's doing here. He is out there using his office for retribution. Mm-hmm. He said he was going to do it during the campaign, and he's doing it right now. Yeah. You used the word messy earlier. Many regard as messy the David Hogg situation. He is your vice chair at the DNC. The young 25-year-old Mr. Hogg has suggested that his outside group will run Democrats against other Democrats, those who have perhaps been there a little too long and not serving as well as they ought. What say you about David Hogg's suggestion, again, your vice chair, that Democrats ought to be primaried by the Democrats? Well, first off, I'm a big fan of David's. I think he's an amazing young leader, and he's already done good things with his organization. But look, this is not a newfound position for me. Mm-hmm. I was a vice chair of the DNC over the last 8 years, heading up all of our state parties. In 2017, I brought forward the superdelegate reform that passed at the Rules and Bylaws Committee. I also brought forward the neutrality pledge, and with Tom Perez, we put forward the first neutrality pledge ever in our DNC's history. And why is that important? Because I believe it is really critical that we earn the trust of voters back. And part of that is making sure no party leader ever puts its thumb on the scale to support incumbents or to support challengers. Our job is to be the referee, to call balls and strikes, to create a fair playing field for anyone who wants to participate, and certainly to never overrule the will of primary voters. They're the ones who make the decision, and our job after they've made the decision is to go out there and fight like hell to get that Democrat elected. That's not a newfound position by me, by the way. I've held that, and I've been a reformer in the party long before David Hogg was ever involved in politics. And so what I reject right now is this idea that somehow Ken Martin and the DNC are coming after David Hogg. I brought this neutrality pledge forward. I campaigned for it as I was running for chair of the party. This is something that I believe passionately in, and frankly, it has nothing to do with David Hogg. It has everything to do with making sure our processes are fair, they're open, and that no party boss ever is putting their thumb on the scale.
I've got 2 minutes left, and I thank you for this time, Mr. Martin. This is my exit question. Your phone went a little crazy a moment ago, and I didn't hear quite, nor did the audience hear quite the conclusion of your answer about white women and how you appeal to white women. And while you're at it, young voters. Bernie Sanders, AOC, certainly appealing to youth voters all across the country. In 2 minutes, how do you get the white women back? And what about young voters?
Well, listen, it's not as easy as a 2-minute answer, only to say that what we have to do is not give up on any community. We have to show up. We have to organize, which is why we have a permanent campaign model. Part of the reason we're losing ground with so many groups, to be honest with you, Tavis, is we're just showing up 3 months before an election. The first conversation we have with voters is asking them for their vote, and the next time they see us is 2 years later when we do the same thing. We have to have year-round organizing, much like we have in Minnesota, where we're always communicating with voters, where we're building a relationship around shared values and a relationship about around their hopes and dreams and their aspirations for their community. And at the end of the day, we have to be present, we have to invest, and we have to not treat voters in any group as just a commodity, just as voters. And the second part of it is actually delivering. When we get into office, showing up, using the power we have to make the biggest difference we can for those communities, and showing people that we're willing to fight for the things we believe in. You know, it's so much more complicated than that, because there's a lot of things you have to do, because we've lost so much ground with many groups. You're right. The most reliable constituency has been the black community. But you know this as well as I. We even lost some ground there this last election. So we have to do work all across the board with our historic coalition to make sure that they know we're fighting for them, and that we're not just treating them as voters, but we're deeply invested in their community.
I got a tight 45 seconds here. Everybody knows the Democratic Party, Kamala Harris had over $1 billion last time around and still lost. How do you convince folk, donors, and everyday people to keep contributing if you have $1 billion and you still lose?
Well, it's a good question, and the reality is we have to make sure that we look backwards, as I mentioned, to learn the right lessons. You know, we're not going to spend $1 billion on broadcast TV like they did, as an example, right? We have to meet voters where they're at. We have to change our tactics, and we have to better spend our money on things that are actually going to help, us win elections. And so part of it is being honest, looking in the mirror. The way we've done business in the past is not working. We have to change our tactics, and we have to spend our money more efficiently. And so I've been having conversations all over the country to let donors know that, the business as usual is not the way forward. We've got to change things dramatically in the party on how we're spending money to reach voters the right way.
Ken Martin, this is your first time on this program as chair of the DNC. Hope you know this platform is always available to you to speak to this broad national audience, primarily of people of color and progressives in thinking, I believe. So again, whenever you want to reach out to us, we are here, and we'll certainly reach out to you in the months ahead. Thank you for your time today, sir. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Tavis. Appreciate it.
Good to have you on. More of Tavis Smiley, including a conversation up next with Jesse Jackson, who served almost 20 years in Congress. Get his take on that conversation and how Democrats should be moving right about now. You're listening, and I'm glad about it, to Tavis Smiley.
Helping to stretch your moral and political imagination. This is Tavis Smiley.
I'm Bree Wood with 4 Things You Should Know with BIN News. Former North Carolina NAACP leader Reverend William Barber was arrested at the U.S. Capitol for praying against potential cuts to social programs. He and 2 other ministers were charged with misdemeanor crowding, obstructing, and incommoding. New York City Mayor Eric Adams announced a $331 million investment for a universal after-school program, expanding free activities to 20,000 more students over 3 years, aiming for 184,000 K-8 children served by fall 2027. It doesn't seem there will be another extension to the May 7th Real ID deadline. The Trump administration says all states will need to comply by then. And severe weather in Pittsburgh caused power outages to over 400,000 homes and businesses with 70-mile-per-hour winds and tornado warnings. 2 deaths are reported, including a man electrocuted by live wires. Get BIN News on demand and on the iHeartRadio app.
Every day, a child in poverty waits for a sponsor is another day of hopelessness. There are thousands of kids who've been waiting over a year. End their wait. Sponsor a child with compassion today. Just text the word radio to 83393.
Right now, there are young people across the world facing a tough choice. Continue their dream of education or drop out to help their family put food on the table. You can help change their future in a single moment. See how far your support can go at unbound.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Both of LA's NBA teams are facing elimination from the playoffs in their next game. The Lakers need to bring it tonight in Game 5 against Minnesota. The Timberwolves lead the best-of-7 series 3-1. If the Lakers lose, this will be the second straight year they have been eliminated in the first round. 7 p.m. tip-off on TNT. Shout out to Lakers star Luka Doncic. Doncic donated $5,000 to cover the entire cost of restoring a mural in downtown LA featuring Kobe Bryant and his daughter Gigi. The mural, designed on a building on the corner of 14th and Main Street, was vandalized over the weekend. As for the Clippers, they forgot to bring their defense to Denver, especially when it came to defending Jamal Murray. Murray lit up the Clippers with 43 points in a 131-115 win. Denver now has a 3-2 lead in the series. They can eliminate the Clippers in Game 6 Thursday night at the Intuit Dome in Inglewood. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
All I need is one mic.
With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavis Smiley. With so many shows on our station weekdays and weekends, it's hard for me to keep track of all the guests who are actually in studio on any given day. I wish I'd known in advance that LADA Nathan Hochman was coming in studio for a recent interview. Had I known, I would have loved to have personally greeted him and then asked him why LA City Council member Karen Price is being criminally prosecuted for allegations of misconduct similar to the conflict of interest violations for which former City Council member Kevin De Leon is only being fined. What's that about, Mr. DA? In fairness to Mr. Hochman, it was former DA George Gascon who actually filed felony charges against Councilman Price. I opined then on how these criminal charges against Price did not pass the smell test. I was concerned then that this was yet another wayward prosecution of a high-profile black elected, not to mention a waste of taxpayer money. I am even more convinced now that this is a hot mess. To be clear, neither you or I want a bunch of self-serving, greedy, conflict of interest criminals managing the people's business inside LA City Hall. But we also don't want selective or targeted prosecution of black politicians. We've seen that movie before, and we don't need a sequel. It's hard to watch Kevin De Leon get away with paying an $18,000 fine for repeated ethics violations, what he calls an oversight, and at the same time, watch the DA's office continue its criminal prosecution of Karen Price for issues allegedly involving his wife's clients. Motions, I might add, that were passed unanimously by the LA City Councilman. What are you saying, Tavis? I'm glad you asked. DA Hochman did not start this inquisition, but he certainly has the power to stop it. I have said it before, and I will say it again. Fundamental fairness. In the absence of fundamental fairness, we experience a cascade of deteriorating conditions. The erosion of trust, the weakening of social cohesion, alienation, marginalization, the legitimacy of authority diminishes, cynicism and disengagement grow, and ultimately, people abandon civic participation altogether. Fundamental fairness, Mr. Hochman, that's all we ask. With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavis Smiley. As always, we welcome your feedback.
Helping to make you the most knowledgeable person in your circle of friends. This is Tavis Smiley.
All right, Ken Martin was chair of the Democratic Party in the state of Minnesota for about 14 years, and I ain't mad at that. But he didn't serve in Congress for almost 20 years, as Jesse Jackson Jr. did. So I wanted to get Mr. Martin's perspective on how Democrats ought to be moving and showing up right about now. We did that. Now we talk to Jesse Jackson Jr. How are you, sir?
Good morning, Tavis. How are you?
I'm doing the best I can, man. Good to have you on. Thank you for your time. Let me just jump right in and start with this. You heard the conversation with Ken Martin, and he said that the party needs to be rebuilt. He then went on to describe how it needs to be rebuilt. What would be your answer to the rebuild question?
Well, before I get to that, let me just say that first, there has been, as far as I can tell, no debate within the Democratic Party to discuss or determine direction.
Mm-hmm.
If there has been a debate, we haven't been invited to it. We're 100 days in. He's just now coming on KBLA. How do you miss Tavis Smiley after the first 100 days? The 1,360 days left in Donald Trump's administration. It's just not possible. It's not feasible. It doesn't make sense that you've not been part of that conversation. That's number one. Number two, we have more than a vested interest in the future of the Democratic Party. We paid for it, more than paid for it. The Democratic Party was a party of slavery. It was the Southern Party against First Reconstruction. It was the party of Southern segregation with Jim Crow. It's Dixiecrats who resisted Brown versus the Board of Education. And those Democrats, including Strom Thurmond, Jesse Helms, Ronald Reagan, moved to the Republican Party 60 years ago, about the same time the strategy that is now coming to fruition in the Donald Trump era is presenting itself. Secondly, I did hear elements of a 2026 strategy that is emerging, also elements of a 2028 strategy that is emerging. But what I did not hear is a 60-year strategy or a 100-year strategy that keeps us focused. I heard they want to organize at the precinct level. I've heard school boards. But what about a strategy that targets the Constitution itself, that targets the federal courts and the interpreters of the Constitution, that targets the Congress, that targets the Senate, that targets governors' mansions, state legislatures, all the way down to dog catcher? I did not hear a strategy that requires 2/3 of the Congress, 3/4 of the states to amend the Constitution to guarantee the rights that we are losing, not only in the first 100 days of Trump, with 1,360 days more to go, but the rights that we've lost and been attacked under the last 60 years. And that can only come from my perspective with clear, principled, constitutional principles, amendments that a political party like the Democratic Party should be fighting for.
To your point that you've not heard or been aware of or been involved in, neither have I, of course, any sort of debate inside the party about its future direction, is that your way of suggesting that the Democratic Party right now is rudderless?
Well, what I am suggesting, Tavis, is winning in 2026 or 2028 is not going to stop the MAGA march through history.
Mm-hmm.
It may pause it.
Mm-hmm.
It may pause it,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not going to stop it. We need to organize around the rights that we are losing.
Mm-hmm.
We need to stop organizing around personalities, including the new crop, whatever generation, the Newsoms, the Pritzkers, the Shapiros, whoever's name pops up on some kind of, great Democratic Party hope. That's not the basis for organizing. That every American deserves the constitutional right to a public education of equal high quality.
Mm-hmm.
That is not in the Constitution. The federal courts are turning that power over to the states, and therefore it's going to be separate and unequal inherently. Every American wants health care. They don't want it to be state-centered health care. They want universal health care that applies to every American, whatever state you live in, whatever county you live in. That needs to present itself in the form of a constitutional right. Our environment is under assault. Well, you cannot fix the global environment, certainly the American environment, on the basis of one state at a time. It would take forever to get all 50 states to agree on what constitutes clean, safe, and sustainable environment. And therefore, you need a constitutional right and a single legislative body to make the most sense out of that.
Yeah.
I would have loved to have heard that from the party chairman. And after that, Tavis, I must admit, I went through every single question that you asked Chairman Martin, and I wrote down his answers, and I do have some thoughts on them.
So I hear your frame, and I love the way. I mean, first of all, you always make me think, and that's a beautiful thing. I hear your frame that we ought to be organizing around the rights that we are losing. I actually like that, and I want to develop that a bit more with you, not just in this conversation, but in the days ahead. I love this notion of organizing, not around personalities, but organizing around the rights that we are losing. Leave it to Jesse Jackson Jr. to get us to re-examine our assumptions, expand our inventory of ideas about how we ought to be navigating in this moment. So I like that part. What troubles me, and you know where I'm going, is the 2/3, depending on what you're talking about, or the 3/4, depending on what you're talking about. That's a high bar. So tell me then how we effectively, with either facing a 2/3 majority needed or a 3/4 majority needed, depending again on what you're talking about, how do we in that frame organize around the rights that we are losing?
Well, he said a 50-state strategy.
Right.
So I assume that means all 435 congressional districts. I'm assuming that means all 100 senators. I'm assuming that also means every single American ought to be thinking about voting for the party that believes in fighting for the rights that we are losing. If they're not in the Constitution, we ought to be working to add them. One amendment to the Constitution took 200 years. You know which one that was? The one to raise congressional salaries. No one agreed with that for 200 years. It finally passed. Another amendment took 10 years to add to the Constitution. Another amendment took only 100 days. So it's only a factor in how the American people feel about what's going on in the democracy that determines how quickly an amendment gets added to the Constitution of the United States. Lest, should we forget, women in our society still make 70 cents to the dollar of what men make. Yes, Tavis, we lost white women in the last election. We were told that abortion was going to be the issue that brought white women to the Democratic Party. Apparently, that was not the case. They didn't even vote for a woman to be president of the United States in the last election. So maybe we ought to make the economic argument that women deserve equality, that 70 cents to the dollar of what men make is unacceptable, that we ought to fight for their economic interests, but it's not just their economic interests. It must present itself in an equal rights amendment added to the Constitution of the United States. And yes, it takes 2/3 of the Congress, 3/4 of the states. But guess what? Every state has women in it. Every state has representatives from Congress in it who are women. And so we can get to that number with a clearly articulated, principled strategy.
The larger white problem. We discussed two white problems with Ken Martin. One, you just put your finger on, white women. The broader problem is that the Democratic Party has not won a plurality of the white vote since the 60s, since the LBJ election. Can they solve that problem? And if so, how?
His answer was, don't give up on anybody.
Yeah.
Year-round organizing.
Right.
Delivering when we get in the office. Well, we've been down that road. So I did not hear that answer from the chairman of the Democratic Party. I did not hear an answer with economic content. I did not hear an answer that is sufficient given the fact that we fought hard as hell for the same voters in last November's election, and they did not show up. And so don't give up on anybody. Year-round organizing is not the answer. I'm not totally convinced. If one more Democratic organizer knocks on my front door, we're working hard as hell out here in the streets. If they knock on my door one more time, I might come with my shotgun and say, what are you doing here? I mean, go back and tell the party leadership that we are losing every conceivable right in the Constitution. We are losing faith in the Constitution. And I'm going to go one step further, Tavis. I've said it on your show. There are millions of African Americans, millions of working class whites, millions of Native Americans across this country and disenfranchised poor voters who worked hard as hell for the Democratic Party, and many of them contain and have a felony conviction. Joe Biden had the chance to restore their lives just like Donald Trump restored 1,500 people's lives, and Joe Biden chose to restore Hunter's life and members of his family. He could have issued an Emancipation Proclamation, and today Joe Biden's picture would be hanging up in 19 million homes in America, promising to vote in the midterms and promising to vote because their lives have been restored. Did you hear the chairman of the Democratic Party say anything about that? No. Did you hear anything about Democrats who are running for the Senate say anything about that? No. And so all of these Democrats, many of whom got locked up based on the crime bill, sponsored by Democrats, signed by Bill Clinton, they need their lives restored so that they can function and participate in this process. Without them, I just don't see how we can even get the 51%, let alone 2/3.
Somebody said the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. He is his daddy's son. More with Jesse Jackson Jr. when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
From California to the Carolinas, everybody's listening to Tavis. More when we come forward.
This is an ad by BetterHelp. Think about your mentors and idols, the people who inspire you the most. While it may look like they have all the answers, they don't. But they do know when to ask questions and seek the support they need. In a world that glorifies hyper-independence, it's easy to forget that we're all better with a support system. Therapy is a great way to find a consistent source of support in your life, so you can break free from the outdated belief that seeking help is a sign of weakness. BetterHelp has experienced therapists ready to help you with challenges ranging from anxiety and depression to relationships and stress. It's convenient, too. You can join a session with the click of a button, helping you fit therapy into your busy life. You can even send your therapist a message anytime something comes up. Build your support system with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/ABCRadio today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/ABCRadio.
If you missed our KBLA Talk 1580 Town Hall, the Altadena Eden Fire, 100 Days and Counting, you missed an evening of reverence, reflection, and reality.
You gotta live in the reality because this is it. Every day, you wake up, is this my life? Don't stay in denial because yes, it is. Don't stay in bargaining where you're praying for a miracle and if it wouldn't have happened, then this is what I would have done. It did.
Our panel participants kept it real. Really real.
I think, number one, it's amazing to me how we ignore systemic racism in our community, and as a people, we've apologized for so much, but when will we stop apologizing for what we have paid for? Because the truth of the matter is we paid for this.
You can always count on KBLA Talk 1580 to give it to you straight, no chaser. When you love folk, you tell them the truth. Seeking the truth, speaking the truth. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we don't black down.
We ask seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone, and should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month. If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your Senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
Made fresh daily in the Mert Park, Los Angeles, California. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Jesse Jackson Jr., host of his own program, The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Delighted to have him on to offer his assessment of our conversation with the chairman of the DNC, Ken Martin, and really how Democrats ought to be showing up right about now that we have moved past Donald Trump's first 100 days. His poll numbers are low, Jesse. The president's poll numbers are low, the lowest of any president in... I'm trying to find the exact data here. It's been a while, though, since any president has had poll numbers as low as Donald Trump's at this point. Here it is. Trump's approval ratings at 100 days are lower than any president in the last 7 decades. But does that actually mean anything, Jesse?
Well, I'm not so sure that it does, because his poll numbers were low right when Hillary Clinton was trying to get into a building, and by the time she walked out the building, she almost fell into her limousine when she heard the poll numbers, that he wasn't as low as they thought. And then her poll numbers were low. Many of us were preparing for a celebration at Howard University and around the country for Kamala Harris. And then we waited up all night for our victory to come through, and suddenly the poll numbers didn't work. So I'm not paying any attention to the polls right now, but I do want to make this point. The fact that the courts can allow the President of the United States to dismantle the Department of Education means there is no constitutional right to an education of equal high quality in America. The court looked at the Constitution. They said the word education is not in the Constitution, so they kicked it out, turned it over to the states. Trump gets to run through the Education Department. There's no word named health care in the Constitution. You can't find the word health care in the Constitution. Therefore, the court looks at the Constitution and says, you know what? Turn health care over to the states. That allows Trump to run through NIH, the Department of Health and Human Service, to dismantle the CDC, to cut back on grants that fund these schools who study health disparities and various disparities that impact every conceivable illness known to man. So it's hard to imagine that with the Constitution and faith in the Constitution on the ballot itself, that we can hear from the chairman of the Democratic Party, and he doesn't first and foremost come up with an agenda or show us an agenda that reestablishes the people's faith in the processes of the Constitution so that we can sustain and save the Union and preserve the Republic. I'm sorry, Tavis. I just had to get that out.
I ain't mad at you. Our remaining moments with Jesse Jackson Jr. when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
This is getting good. Yeah, man. Tavis Smiley continues when we come forward.
Hey, get in. What? Who are you? I'm future you. Constipation with belly pain still coming back? Yeah. Mia, our doctor figured it out. She said it's irritable bowel syndrome with constipation, or IBS-C, and Linzess could help you get ahead of it.
Linzess linaclotide is a prescription medicine that treats IBS-C in adults. It's not a laxative. It's a once-daily pill that helps you get ahead of your symptoms. It's proven to help you have more frequent and complete bowel movements and helps relieve overall abdominal symptoms, belly pain, discomfort, and bloating. These symptoms were studied in combination, not individually. Do not give Linzess to children less than 2. It may harm them. Do not take Linzess if you have a bowel blockage. Get immediate help if you develop unusual or severe stomach pain, especially with bloody or black stools. The most common side effect is diarrhea, sometimes severe. If it's severe, stop taking Linzess and call your doctor right away. Other side effects include gas, stomach area pain, and swelling. Talk to your doctor and say yes to Linzess. Learn more at linzess.com or call 1-800-LINZESS.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
You know where you want to go in life, and City National Bank can help. City National knows the dedication it takes to build your vision for the future into a reality, and our team is here for you. We have a wide range of options to help, from personal savings accounts to interest-bearing money market savings accounts and more, all designed to help you get where you want to go. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Learn more at cnb.com. City National Bank is a subsidiary of Royal Bank of Canada, member FDIC.
Hear that? That's the sound of your life. Perfectly imperfect. Beating in rhythm to the world you've created. But every time you drive after drinking, the music gets drowned out. Your life sounds pretty great. Don't let a buzz ruin it. Buzz driving is drunk driving. Don't drive buzzed. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Life blooms in beautiful ways. The Afia Center invites you to celebrate At the End with Red Gala, honoring the strength and resilience of Black women living with HIV. Join us for an evening of empowerment as we launch the Barbara Cambridge Scholarship and kick off Her Story Month with our theme, Life in Full Bloom. Your support helps create vital HIV programming and builds a future where every voice is heard and every story matters. The End with Red Gala, because every flower deserves to bloom. To learn more and to donate, visit theafiacenter.org.
Let's get back to more of this rich dialogue with Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Jesse Jackson Jr. got about 4 minutes left, and I want to yield most all of it to Jesse. Ken Martin, I suspect Jesse is the titular head of the party, given that he's the head of DNC at the moment, and we have no Democrat in the White House. But the Democrats, in my mind, have a leadership problem. I hear your point, and I agree. They have an organizing problem. They ought to be organizing around the rights that we're losing. I get that. They got a leadership problem. I've said many times that Chuck Schumer is not the answer to the prayer right now. And the number two in the Senate, Dick Durbin from your home state of Illinois, where you are in Chicago right now, has announced his retirement. What say you, 3.5 minutes to go, I'll give it all to you about how Democrats address their leadership problem.
Well, first and foremost, there's no substitute for leadership. I get my leadership from listening to you every morning. I get my leadership from Truth Time, listening to Dr. West and Nina Turner. They're making a lot of sense to me, and they're making more sense, quite frankly, than the entire infrastructure of the Democratic Party, which is why I'm so happy to be part of the KBLA family. But let me be crystal clear. Donald Trump also celebrated 130 executive orders in his first 100 days. We'd like to see Mr. Pritzker's 130 executive orders. We need to see Brother Newsom's 130 executive orders. He got time to write them. We need to see Gretchen Whitmer's 130 executive orders in the first week of her presidency. We need to see that from Mr. Shapiro. You want leadership? We're going to have to reverse what this guy has done in short order and very quickly. How do we do that without these executive orders? We are now learning that the presidency of the United States has a power that we did not know they had. So how can we talk past the fact that Donald Trump is establishing a new norm? And unless Democrats have the 180-degree difference, the alternative to the new norm, we can't even pull the country back to the middle. Anytime you see AOC moderating her point of view, to be a moderate in the middle now is to be left of where the right wing is. So we've got to take a hard left just to get back to the middle, not accommodate it. Gavin Newsom in California is having a podcast, a regular series of meetings with the right wing, discussing it, trying to show them that he doesn't have wax in his ears. I hear these similar meetings are taking place around the country, Democrats trying to convince the right wing that they don't have wax in their ears. But don't be confused, Tavis, and our listeners should not be confused. They use diversity, equity, and inclusion as a plan to undermine the American economy. They blamed all progress that blacks have made and women have made and minorities have made and the lesbian and gay community has made over the last 60 years as all of America's problems. And it turns out that we as a people do have a relationship to terror. They used us to get to that. They used us to get to the grip. And we ought to recognize that and do something about it. That's leadership, Tavis.
No, I get it. Jesse used the phrase a moment ago that made me think. He said we got to take a hard left. And for those who have followed my work over the years, I've written, I think, 24 books, something like that. But my very first book was a book called Hard Left. I got to go put it off the shelf and read it again, man. You scared me when you said we got to take a hard left. I wrote that book like 25 years ago. Maybe I need to reprise that sucker and bring it back out again.
Too, I wrote A More Perfect Union 25 years ago, about the same time as you Hard Left, and here we are.
Here we are. we did something. Maybe we peaked too soon, Jesse. We peaked too soon. We put those texts out too early. Maybe it's the time to put them back out again. For now, though, I thank my friend, my brother, my colleague, Jesse Jackson Jr. for his insights, and I want you to think about that the rest of the day and in the days to come, that maybe what Democrats ought to be doing is just what Jesse Jackson Jr. has prescribed. We need to be organizing, not around people, not around personalities, but around the rights that we are losing. If Democrats can organize around the rights that people are losing, that's part of what Bishop Barber said yesterday when it comes to poor people. We organize around these rights, maybe you can re-energize the party. I digress for now. Jesse, I'll talk to you soon, sir. All the best to you.
Thank you, Tavis. I appreciate being on.
Appreciate you, man. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with 4 Things You Should Know with BIN News. Former North Carolina NAACP leader Reverend William Barber was arrested at the U.S. Capitol for praying against potential cuts to social programs. He and 2 other ministers were charged with misdemeanor crowding, obstructing, and incommoding. New York City Mayor Eric Adams announced a $331 million investment for a universal after-school program, expanding free activities to 20,000 more students over 3 years, aiming for 184,000 K-8 children served by fall 2027. It doesn't seem there will be another extension to the May 7th Real ID deadline. The Trump administration says all states will need to comply by then. And severe weather in Pittsburgh caused power outages to over 400,000 homes and businesses with 70-mile-per-hour winds and tornado warnings. 2 deaths are reported, including a man electrocuted by live wires. Get BIN News on demand and on the iHeartRadio app.
Every day, a child in poverty waits for a sponsor is another day of hopelessness. There are thousands of kids who've been waiting over a year. End their wait. Sponsor a child with compassion today. Just text the word radio to 83393.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Both of LA's NBA teams are facing elimination from the playoffs in their next game. The Lakers need to bring it tonight in Game 5 against Minnesota. The Timberwolves lead the best-of-7 series 3-1. If the Lakers lose, this will be the 2nd straight year they have been eliminated in the first round. 7 p.m. tip-off on TNT. Shout out to Lakers star Luka Doncic. Doncic donated $5,000 to cover the entire cost of restoring a mural in downtown LA featuring Kobe Bryant and his daughter Gigi. The mural, designed on a building on the corner of 14th and Main Street, was vandalized over the weekend. As for the Clippers, they forgot to bring their defense to Denver, especially when it came to defending Jamal Murray. Murray lit up the Clippers with 43 points in a 131-115 win. Denver now has a 3-2 lead in the series. They can eliminate the Clippers in Game 6 Thursday night at the Intuit Dome in Inglewood. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
If you missed our KBLA Talk 1580 Town Hall, the Altadena Eden Fire, 100 Days and Counting, you missed an evening of reverence, reflection, and reality.
You gotta live in the reality because this is it. Every day, you wake up, is this my life? Don't stay in denial because yes, it is. Don't stay in bargaining where you're praying for a miracle and if it wouldn't have happened, then this is what I would have done. It did.
Our panel participants kept it real. Really real.
I think, number one, it's amazing to me how we ignore systemic racism in our community, and as a people, we've apologized for so much, but when will we stop apologizing for what we have paid for? Because the truth of the matter is we paid for this.
You can always count on KBLA Talk 1580 to give it to you straight, no chaser. When you love folk, you tell them the truth. Seeking the truth, speaking the truth. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we don't black down.